Hi folks, I'm Alan Watt and this is cuttingthroughthematrix.com. Today is May the 24th, 2007, and I'm going to let you hear a conversation I had with Butch Chancellor from Missouri just a couple of days ago. This is not atypical of the kind of calls I get all through the week with people who have the fallout of today's society and the changes that have occurred and are occurring actually hitting them personally. Now, most people go through life and when they're in their earlier years, they enjoy it to the full for all the things that life has to offer. They chase the things they're supposed to have and do, and they don't realize they're categorized already in that state they're in from those beneath them, the younger ones, and those who are above them, the older ones. Every generation has purposely been separated from the next. There's no real interaction. We have government experts now and categories and associations and societies of experts who deal with all the problems which society in itself used to deal with and that families used to deal with. Families are pretty well broken now, and the generation gap is more than a gap, it's a separation, where many young people think the elderly are useless. They do really think that, they do. Whereas not too long ago, the elderly had the wisdom, they had the memories, they'd gone through all the mistakes, they'd seen the con games that happen down through the years in politics, they'd seen the consequences of the doublespeak lies of politicians and agendas, and they could always advise the young. So that had to be smashed a long time ago. And books were written in the early 1900s about the format and the necessity to separate the generations so that wisdom couldn't be passed on. And then when it comes the next generation's turn to suffer the consequences, they have no data to go on, so they fall into the same traps. Most people don't realize how bad it is until it happens to them. Media is incredibly good at stigmatizing people on behalf of the agencies that are taking over the lives of people. Therefore, just simple accusations or statements that come out of, say, children's aids societies or police PR spokesmen who give statements will be taken at face value, never questioned by the general public, or it wouldn't be in the paper. That's how we analyze things. We don't really analyze, we simply get them downloaded into us and we accept them without realizing there's much more to all this than meets the eye. And it's the same with the elderly. You have the children at one end getting taken by the children's aid, and you have the elderly who are being rounded up at times by agencies who make their living off taking the pensions of the elderly. They also get grants and so on. They're tied in with the pharmaceutical agencies to drug patients once they have them in under their clutches, where they put you in a little chair next to the wall, stick a tray in there, a sliding tray that locks, and you're sitting there rocking, trying to get out of it, so they put you on Halidol or something else to keep you quiet. That's a good patient when you're drooling and quiet. That's literally how the system works. It's inhumane. But then the elderly have lost all respect purposely through propaganda and movies. In the movies you always see the elderly as being dotery, silly, childlike. That's how they're portrayed by deliberation, of course. I don't sit here doing what I'm doing because there's nothing else I'd like to do. It's just that it's an imperative at the moment to say what I know to the public while there's a chance to say anything at all, because this will stop one day. as the big steamroller of totalitarianism in the new scientific society hoists its flag even higher until everyone sees it. Many of the calls I take are tragic, heartbreaking, from people in trouble who've been your average person generally, who didn't realize very often how bad it was until the system aimed at them and came after them. This upcoming talk I had with Butch is rather typical, in fact, of what I deal with often on a daily basis sometimes, but definitely a weekly basis, from all different countries. This is what happened to him because of something which will happen to everyone eventually, when his wife, who was already bedridden, had been for years, whom he'd taken care of since she was paralyzed from an operation she received in hospital. She'd probably be dead if they'd taken care of her since, but the fact is she's been alive for years since, and Butch was taken care of her by himself. That says a lot right there. However, you'll hear his story when he thought he would take her for a checkup because for a few days he noticed she wasn't quite herself. This is what transpired. And this is his story. And this is where it stands now. Listen and learn.
This is an account of the occurrences on Monday, the 21st of May. My bedfast wife, she's paralyzed, and she's been bedfast for 11 years, had become ill. She's 78 years old. And we called for an ambulance to come pick her up and take her to the hospital for an examination. Now, a neighbor called 911 to obtain this ambulance. Well, in a few minutes, I heard a siren come around the corner and down the street. And I couldn't think it was for us because this was not an emergency thing, but it stopped in front of the house. And there was a knock on the door. I had left the door open and the screen unlocked, and I knocked because I was expecting them. And so I called to them since I was working with Martha, my wife, and told them, come on in. Well, this guy came into the house saying, did you call the fire department? I said, well, no, of course not. We don't have a fire here. And he says, did you call an ambulance? And I said, yeah, I called an ambulance. And he says, well, these days, if you call an ambulance, you get the fire department. Oh, well, I didn't understand that, but no sooner had he said that than he rushed in off to a position on my left. A second guy assumed a position on my right, and the third guy was standing directly in front of me, the classic military triangulation fire pattern. Any of you guys that are in the military will recognize that. And there I was in the middle of a triangle. Now these guys were dressed in black. From boot to their collar, they were all in black, and they were not wearing a cap or any headgear. And but they had heavy pistol belts and a heavy pistol on the belt. And they were trying to figure out, I guess, who got to shoot me first. But this one guy who appeared to be the spokesman for them, now this black uniform they were wearing, said fire department on the back, but there was no fireman's badge or anything like that. And he began asking routine questions about Martha's current condition and her immediate condition before she became ill. All of them were reasonable enough questions. And this one fellow at one point interrupted. He said he wanted to examine my smoke detector. I told him, go ahead. I guess this was a part of the act. I don't know. Meantime, the little mean-looking guy, the one that was on the top point of this pyramid, or triangle rather, had quit fingering his gun butt and assumed the military position of a parade rest. And the fellow that was doing the talking continued to question me about Martha and her condition. The one fellow, the little military guy, stepped outside and apparently called on a cell phone because another siren fired up. This time just a couple of doors away, and then just moved down a couple of doors and stopped at the house. And then came the real ambulance crew, 4 guys and with a gurney, and one gal with a clipboard. The gal with the clipboard proceeded to ask me the identical questions the other fellow had asked. They then loaded Martha onto the gurney and left, and asking no further questions. Well, one of the most puzzling things for me was they asked no questions about me or my ability to pay or Martha's Medicare, Medicard, the ordinary stuff that I've been used to at hospital entrances was you got to fill out reams of paper. They demand my Social Security number as well as Martha's and ID and so on. And they'd asked for none of that. So I got to thinking about it. I said, hey, I'd better get over to that hospital and fill out that paperwork because I don't know if they're going to do anything for her unless they get their paperwork. And so I called over there. Well, my neighbor was here. And I was telling him what I was going to do, and he says, well, I'll run over there and get that for you. But you maybe better call them and see if they'll give it to me. And I said, okay, I'll call them. And I called them, and they said, no, we've got all we need. But I don't know, but I think that indicates something about the massive databases or spy bases we've heard of. They didn't want my ID, my Social Security number. Usually they want the spouse's Social Security number to check their credit and make sure they got enough money to pay the hospital bill. But I think they must already have that these days.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
So how old was your wife?
78.
And you are?
72.
You're 72. And you should tell maybe the listeners what happened to your wife initially, years ago, to cause all this.
Okay, in 1994, my wife and I and a niece and her little daughter were having dinner at a fish place. And as we were leaving, my wife became ill, and I took her outside because it was hot in there, and I had to get her a fresh breath air. She was feeling dizzy, she said. I took her outside, and the fresh air didn't seem to do much for her. So a nice lady came along and steadied Martha on a rail while I I went and got the car, and the niece paid our bill. And we took her home, and she became violently ill, vomiting and diarrhea. And I thought she was going to be okay after clearing that up, but she continued to have the dry heaves. And I didn't know what to do about that, so I thought, well, I'll take you to the hospital. Which one do you want to go to? And she told me. And it happened to be the nearest one, so I was happy with that. So I took her over there. And they looked her over for about 3 hours there in the ER. And they brought her out on a gurney, and she was out like a light. And the guy says, we've fixed the nausea, but we need to keep her overnight to take care of the diarrhea. This was on a Friday evening, and by that time it was about 10, 11 o'clock. I said, well, he says, you can come by in the morning when the doctors run and pick her up. And he says, the doctor's run since it's Saturday will be at 11. I said, okay, I'll be there at 11 and pick her up. Well, in the meantime, Saturday morning, her daughter, and she said, Mom's still asleep. And I don't know, it was 8 o'clock, 9. And it was strange because Mom's an early riser, right? She's never in bed after 6 a.m. So I went in there, and I found all kinds of strange things going on. It appeared to me that somebody was trying to fool somebody or something, because Martha kept saying, I want to go to the bathroom. They had her rails up on the bed, and they had an IV in her arm. And she said, I want to go to the bathroom. I said, okay. I rang for the nurse, and the nurse was irritated about it. She said she doesn't need to go to the bathroom. She's dehydrated. That's why we've got the IV in her arm. She said, but I'm going to put her in the bedpan just to show you. I said, okay, go ahead. And she did. And Martha was happy, but there was no urine emission. Now, it's been that way for 11 years.
Yeah, but what did they do there with the surgeon?
With the surgeon?
Yeah.
Okay, well, following, it took me a while to figure out that something was bad wrong. For one thing, they were lying to me about Martha and her condition. And whenever I figured it out, I told the nurses that I think she has brain damage, and I want a doctor in now, and I want her examined for brain damage. Well, there was a lot of fluttering, and they brought in a guy who was advertised as a brain surgeon. And he says, I want to put a shunt in Martha's head. In the meantime, they did take x-rays, and they told me that there was a clot at the base of her skull that was shutting off the return line so that her brain was under pressure. He says, what we'll do is we'll put in a shunt. We'll drain off the pressure. Well, I'd known a guy who had lived with a shunt for years, so I approved of it. They did not do a shunt. The guy drove a spike down through the top of her skull, down just to the right of the midline of the brain, all the way down through the medulla and into the spinal cord. And that wasn't enough for him. He did it a second time. And, of course, that paralyzed her instantly and damaged her vision and her coordination and just a lot of things. But it paralyzed the entire left side of her body, and it's been paralyzed since. But that's kind of what happened to start this all off. Yeah.
But the other thing is, too, what was it, the story they gave you this time when they came in the other day there? And when they talked about the condition of the house. How did that arise?
Well, I'm not sure what was going on that. Nobody said anything to me about a condition of the house here. But what happened was my sister, who she had lived all through this earlier thing in the 90s with us. We of course filed med mal, and that resulted in death threats and people killing our dogs and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with raids by the sheriff's office and all kinds of things like that. But that settled down after a while when the court cases quit.
Yep.
Then nobody bothered us for several years. But let's see, what was your question again, Al?
Yeah, are they actually trying to use that as an excuse?
Oh, yes. My sister called the hospital, and the nurse read her the nurse's notes or chart on the end of her bed. And the first entry was that the house was dirty and there was feces everywhere.
Yep.
So I think we're all set up. That was what they maintained.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that somehow Martha's illness was related to that.
Yeah, the inference, yeah.
Okay, well now since then, and it took them a while to do it, but they've discovered that her illness was due to a stone lodged in the urinary tract, which gave her a urinary infection, which gave her a bladder infection,
was dehydrated,
which gave her a blood infection.
Yeah.
And that was the second story.
Yeah.
And today they revised it a little bit when my sister was over there. And they said, well, yeah, all that's true, but there was, let's see, what is the bacteria that...
E. coli, is it? Or
pardon me?
It's E. coli they're going after?
E. coli. There's E. coli in the blood. So they're trying to get their story organized, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you used to do shows, didn't you, on the situation of the government?
Yes. I was on Crusade Radio 3 days a week live for 2 years with a show called Hot Seat for Judges. And I interviewed people who had been damaged by the corrupt court system.
So you're already popular.
Pardon me?
You're already popular in the right places, right?
Oh, yes. Okay, well, and then for another year I did the same 3-hour stint with a show that was a little different format, a wider range. It was called These Orwellian Times. It looked at the whole spectrum of what's going on out there.
Yeah.
And there were people out there that don't like me much.
Do you think that's something to do with the way these guys came in with the guns and all the rest of it?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I think when they told me that we know all we need to know,
then they did.
That included all of my sordid past.
That's it. That's what they meant by that. That's it. So they're out to set you up here, I think, too. And now you've got to go through the battles of trying to find out how they're treating your wife and the prognosis and what the future schedule is with it all.
Well, one of the things that we treated, one of the topics that we treated quite extensively on These Orwellian Times was the state-ordered murder thing, like Terry Schiavo, and the murder of old folks in hospitals, nursing homes, and hospitals.
You're really, really popular now. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they were waiting to get me.
Yeah.
But Yeah, we had people on our show, such as the Hospice Patients Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
We had them on there a lot.
Yeah.
And we brought on people to talk, and these people generally wanted assistance in springing somebody who was being held prisoner in a hospital or a nursing home or a hospice somewhere and was being held there and not given any food or water.
Yeah.
And once in a while, those folks, I did what I could to help them on my show, and generally there were a lot of people who did other shows that would listen to mine, and then they would invite those people on as guests on their show.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a little snowball effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, they'll certainly know your name, and they certainly know you've been digging up the dirt. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of dirt there to dig up, and they don't like that being disturbed.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
the other topic that did bring, I must tell you that there were attempts to censor the show, and there were attempts to hack the show, quite successful attempts at hacking the show.
Yeah.
Hacking my telephone number. On 2 occasions, my telephone was totally disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it seemed to center on people who were, my guests, who were exposing CPS DFS, child kidnapping and state trafficking in children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So some of it may be coming from that direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do know that the whole agenda now is eventually to guide us all into accepting euthanasia as the norm.
Yes.
Once our function of serving the state and paying taxes is over.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is far more extensive than, even I had realized. There were some aspects of it anyway. This call an ambulance and get the hook and ladder truck.
Well, you didn't
seen that before.
What they've done years ago was bring in the paramedic teams, and apparently they changed it. I don't know why. It was fire engines, But again...
Well, I don't know what they were... I just mentioned that because they claimed to be firemen, but there were nothing like it. I don't know what they were...
Well, do you ever see firemen who carry pistols?
Right, and wear black?
They wear black and boots and combat boots, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that little military twerp had his combat boots bloused.
Uh-huh, yeah. Uh-huh.
The other guys didn't, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is the team coming in first because you'll be known in the area too by neighbours as being someone who's not too enthusiastic about governmental policies.
Yes, well, I guess maybe I made a mistake by bringing in local people whose children had been seized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did several of the local people, and their phones were tapped, mine were tapped, and these guys, they would break in on the conversation.
Yeah, I've had that.
And harass you by cutting your thing off or making noises or whatever.
That's right.
And
this is the freest country in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But, we had that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been off air for quite some time. I've been preparing to do a podcast, but I've had so many things to do. It's been kind of slow in getting going. Mm-hmm. But if anybody would like to have a look, you can see the kinds of things I've been doing at my blog. It's Vetzine. That's a contraction for Veterans Magazine. VETZINE.BLOGSPOT.com. Vetzine@blogspot.com.
Yeah. Have you put this information of this recent occurrence up on your blog yet?
No, I haven't. I've been too busy fighting the local fires, the fire department.
Yeah.
But I will be putting something up on it.
Yeah. Do you now? The thing is, you probably know that the next step for them is to start to get the social work department in there to come to your place and start winning you away to the idea that she's now their property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that's kind of the way it's pointed. I have a message on my machine from a socialist worker saying that I should give her a call.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, that's to feel you out, to see how you feel about their idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mentioned that some of this stuff is overtaking me. One of them is, I'd heard about all the databases, spy bases, and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that it was so extensive that they don't even have to ask you your name.
It's been like that for quite some time, long before 9/11. When they phone even the police now, they have all your data there, and they have had for the last 15, 20 years. But the thing is that was interesting here, though, is that you didn't call them. It was a neighbor that called them.
That's right.
You see, so they already knew your data, which tells me that there was some sort of communication between the neighbor and them as to your exact...
Well, you're quite right. Remember the good old TIPS program, Turn In Parents and Siblings?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And everybody is a spy on everybody else?
That the new Soviets, yeah.
Yeah, your pizza man...
Mm-hmm.
turns you in.
Yeah, that's right. That's the new Soviet.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking that it's alive and well. They dropped the advertising under that label, but I think it's churning right on.
It is. It's right down to the local level. You have people watching television 24 hours a day almost. And they soak up all these dramas that are put out there with spies, cops, and detectives, and terrorism everywhere. Watch everybody, and they're emulating what they see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know you're just right on this, because the other thing that took me by surprise was, you call the ambulance. You're gonna get the fire department.
Well, yeah. What's got me is now it's not safe to phone anybody, because if your house goes on fire, maybe, or you need an ambulance, especially to let it go up in flames and just get outside, because you might live that way. This way that just happened to you, you don't know if you're going to live or not when they come in with the guns. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my sister was telling me that this has been going on for a couple of years. She said, that's the way it's done.
Yeah.
They do it that way.
Oh, really?
What are you talking about? She had gone 2 years ago to stay with our other sister who was dying with cancer in St. Louis. She said, you ought to have seen what... she was still horrified, but you should have seen what's going on in St. Louis if you think this is bad.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, that was a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Fahrenheit
451.
That's right. And even in the old movie that they made, their job was to start fires and burn forbidden books.
That's right.
All books
they didn't
are forbidden.
Have water in the hose. They had kerosene.
And the captain always, and the top ones all had pistols.
Really?
Yeah, they all had pistols with them.
It's been ages since I read that.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten the thing about the top fireman having pistols.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, I think I should reread Fahrenheit 451 in order to kind of come up to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that, I don't know, in the 50s, and that was Robert Heinlein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knew what was coming then.
Yeah, well, I have a little interesting story for you on that if you have time for it.
Mm-hmm.
I had one of my daughters was behaving strangely, her mother said. She said, you've got to check out Carla.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going on with her. And I said, what are you talking about? What's going on? She says, well, she's got her nose in a book all the time. She's reading books compulsively. I said, well, that's a good idea, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
She says, no, there's entirely too much of it. She won't do anything but read books.
Yeah.
I think maybe I better have a talk with her. So I talked with her about books and so on. And I told her that I was interested in her sudden interest in books. And she said, one of the books I found is called Fahrenheit 451, about them coming around to burn books. And I'm going to read them all before they get here. Yeah, I mean, she was like 9 or something.
Yep. Yeah, the only ones that will be authorized shortly will be It Takes a Village to Raise a Child, and all these books. Yeah. The rest of them will be forbidden. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all coming down.
Yeah.
But the problem is the public run about you, they don't know. They just adopt what they see on television and become what they see on television. And so it's not even safe to have neighbors now.
I've concluded that.
It's not safe. It's the people who watch your everyday business and have little chats with you. If you notice what's happening in the system right now, and because remember, they think it's all evolving naturally, then they will perceive you as strange, odd, and a possible terrorist, a thought criminal. Yeah. That's what's happening.
Well, I think they're right, Alan.
Yes. And then, of course, now be careful about phoning for help, emergency departments, because phoning for help can be dangerous to your health. Yeah. Yeah. Everything, all the perceptions have altered, you know. The functions of all these agencies now are combined. That's what they mean by multi-jurisdictional task forces. It was a blending of all uniformed employees into one combined unit. And that's what we're seeing. We have military guys.
That's why it says fire department on the back of the shirt, but they're dressed in black and they're not fighting fires.
Yeah, and they've got pistols. I've never seen a fire fought with a pistol before. So, yeah, this is combined units. And it's interesting that right after 9/11, part of the speech that Rumsfeld gave to the people was that he wanted to see everyone, I think Bush did it too, everyone in a uniform stand up and put your uniform on. And I thought, that's a weird thing. He meant postmen, everybody. Because this was part of the old agenda, was to bring all these forces together into the new Soviet. Yeah.
Yes, and there's another related phenomenon going on, and it's kind of a community-based thing.
Yeah.
And we have those, I call them your neighborhood Soviet. And these people, they want to supply you with a job and help you find a place to stay, buy a house or rent one, or entertain you, supply you with your entertainment, supply you with medical.
Yeah.
And all of this in your own snug little community.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that here.
Yeah, it's called communitarianism.
Yeah.
Papa Bush is the one who backed that initially. Where it's all leading.
Local one, the acronym is OCAC. Now I don't know what that means, but that is one. That's the umbrella organization for these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, they have trash drives to help you out, and then they have little entertainments over at the schoolhouse and that kind of thing. So it's a small Soviet.
And eventually, if you don't attend these communal little agendas that they have out there, they'll wonder why not. They'll want to know why you're not there.
And so I may have sinned and fallen short right there.
Yeah, and the last about 8 years, on everyone's local television station across really the whole of the West, they have all these little, on your local news and television, it's all little community events. And that was all planned a long time ago towards these habitat areas, community events, good citizens. Everyone mixes with everyone else, and everyone's story is known by everyone else. That's what it's all about. Yeah, boy, it's like really. I used to think of the elderly homes they had there, where they put you in there, make you play dominoes and stuff like this, or bingo. I mean, boy, what a thrill! and then of course they'll play Barry Manilow records to show you that you really are in hell. Yeah.
Well, you described it perfectly. I should tell you that when I met Martha, What was it now, 24 years ago or something like that, 83, I don't know.
Yeah.
She was a social director of a nursing home.
Oh, yeah.
And she'd been there for 10 years, and she continued to work for them for a year after she married me. So I got drafted to go to the nursing home in the evenings after work and help string up bunting and, arrange stuff for little parties and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I got a good look at the nursing home from that.
Yeah.
And you're right. Dominoes is mandatory.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful.
Martha was a little bit different, and so she may have a few enemies of her own, fewer than mine. But she would stack the deck in the card games just to make the game livelier.
Okay.
Pass out a stack of cards that's nothing but kings, whatever like that. And she would hold little drawings, and if there was a little lady in there whose family was neglecting her, why, guess who won the free hairdo and makeover?
Okay.
Yeah. So Martha cheats a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
But,
but yeah, that's their idea of the new improved method of dealing with the elderly is just get them out of the way, take their pensions off them, recycle the money.
Oh yeah.
And of course they're functionally they're classed as useless eaters. They're not producing, they're just consuming.
That's right.
And anybody who doesn't think that's relevant should look up the Sustainable Development Agenda for Agenda 21 from the UN. It's all in there. They don't want the useless eaters. And it's not a new idea. Bertrand Russell talked about it back in the 40s and 50s. So this is what's all coming to. We're all being managed into the new society by super powerful government agencies who are all networked together. Yeah. And you've just experienced it again.
It's they're presenting a solid front against the citizen these days. It's far more solid than even I had thought, and I thought I was paranoid.
It's not just that; it's the gradualism how it was introduced. I mean, all people forget so quickly. It just takes a generation, or even less than one, to introduce health services, law services, police services. Now, police are now enforcement agencies. The health services are now authorities. You see, everything they've got their foot in the door, and then they become the masters. And
what do you bet the social worker's got a Derringer in her handbag?
She'll have something. She'll have something. She will, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it. And they have 1,000 ways to get you. And if they can't find something, they'll fabricate something.
Oh, yeah.
Which happens commonly to have their way. But everything now, again, apart from all that, is also money, because every person they get inside is another pension into their pocket, you see. And it's just simply a method of getting their cash in. It's a business, It's a huge business. I've yet to see an honest high business working. Honestly, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Not in this system. So that's your first-hand experience so far, and now you have to wait and see what the next move is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try to keep you posted, Alan, as things move along here.
Yeah. I mean, you've been taking care of your wife for how many years now?
Pardon me?
Your wife's been bedridden for how many years now? Since
11.
11 years. And you haven't had any help?
I've had help off and on. I found in the beginning that you try to get help, you get harm.
Okay.
My first experience was that when we brought her home from the hospital, and of course, I needed help, and the hospital gave me a referral, and I called up these home health people, and they sent out therapists and nurses and such to the house. Well, the first one to show up was the physical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And she did not knock. She just opened the door and came in. She spotted Martha over there reclining on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
She ran over and grabbed Martha's left arm and jerked it into the air. Martha screamed, and I ran her out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And she was Chinese, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
A few days passed, and the speech therapist was scheduled in for 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, they didn't show up. And anyway, it was just as well, because Martha was still having a lot of effects from this, and she had been vomiting all day.
Yep.
Well, along about 4 o'clock, the vomiting ceased, and Martha got some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And like, 5:30, there was a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and there was a little short man there. I estimated him to be a Pakistani, and he says, me peach parapet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I told him, you're a day late and $1 short, and he says, me peach parapet.
Mm-hmm.
Why, I sent him packing.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, what happened to the other one? I don't recall exactly, but now we did have a very good nurse who didn't approve of any of this stuff going on, and she came out and we were talking about it. She said, well, there is your occupational therapist, and he says he's from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, but he frightens people.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want me to send him out? And I says, no, we don't need any frightening people who are not sure where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned out that all these people were in on a program from NAFTA.
NAFTA, yeah.
And that they could pay them Mexican wages.
Okay, yeah. I'd read about that, yeah.
Yeah, and they were in here doing work, and the company that had them here was drawing top dollar.
And paying them peanuts.
And paying them, nothing. You know,
Yes, that's right.
handful of rice and beans and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a little later on, there was a huge nurses' strike and protest in Washington on that. Almost every nurse left their hospitals and marched on Washington. Now, you didn't hear on that. The only place I heard about it was the Kansas City Star, and I only heard about it there because that was the headquarters of a huge nurses association.
Mm-hmm.
And if they hadn't printed it, those guys at the paper might have had to go without any nursing help.
Uh-huh, yeah.
But it wasn't on TV, it wasn't anywhere, but, thousands and thousands. I don't know what it was, 40,000 or something like that, I've forgotten. But
yeah.
They marched all down Pennsylvania Avenue, and it all came to naught.
Really?
Yeah. And they were doing that because these foreign imports through NAFTA was killing the patients.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's no training, really. I mean, it's...
Right.
Mm-hmm. You see, people don't realize that the whole medical industry is one of the biggest businesses. It's a business, first and foremost, in the world. And it's all the propaganda through fictional dramas and series on television that's given the people a completely different impression.
Yes.
There's no altruism.
Like the lawyers.
Yeah.
If you watched Matlock, you've got a big surprise coming.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You see, it's business. It's big business. There's no altruism there. It just isn't there at all. And that's only in our minds from all the fiction that they make us watch, It's because all fiction is propaganda in some form or another. And the public don't realize, they think they're all out there to help because they want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's quite the wage packets the big boys take home for all this helping,
Mm-hmm.
And once your insurance runs out, they toss you off to the Salvation Army or somewhere.
Yeah.
There's your caring society.
I heard a story the other day about hospitals. I'm thinking it was in California, but I'm not sure. That some little old homeless lady was ill, and she went to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And they put her out on the street barefooted.
Yeah.
What they did is they put her in a taxi and said, take her to Skid Row and throw her out. This was the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I heard there's a bunch of tapes from doctors there was a show in Britain, a BBC show, and they were giving you some of the tapes, conversations between doctors in a main hospital, I think in New York, and one of the Salvation Army, or one of the hospitals that was run by charity, and they were passing patients that run out of insurance money, and of course the guy at the charity thing said, we're just overburdened and not enough staff, yada. We can't take these patients, and he says you have to hold on to them for a bit longer till we get some beds. And the guy from the paying hospital says, no, we'll just put them on the street. These were people who were dying.
Mm-hmm.
There was no altruism there. There was no regrets. It was just business. Yeah, pure business. Mm-hmm. It's disgusting. Yeah. We went to the moon, eh?
Pardon me?
They say we went to the moon.
Oh yeah.
We're so civilized. We're so advanced, and here they are. When your insurance runs out, they toss you on the street to die. Mm-hmm. What a civilization.
Yeah. Well, we went through that in the early stages too. Martha had the Blue Cross Blue Shield, which was supposedly really good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take them long to strip out the Blue Cross Blue Shield, I can tell you that. And as soon as that's done, you're out.
Yeah, they pick the bones of your insurance, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they spit it out. And that's their civilized system that we're all taught is so beautiful and wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when your Blue Cross Blue Shield, that you've been paying through the nose for, and along with your employer, perhaps, if you're lucky enough to have him kicking in something, when that is stripped out, then good luck on getting Medicare.
Yeah.
Because you ain't gonna get it if they can help it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's profit all the way to the bank, yeah. I wonder what the next step will be with you, though. I think it will be the social worker feeling you out as to what happens if they want to keep Martha or find her a place or an elderly home. Because they'll try that now. They'll say you're incapable of taking care of her. And that's what they'll probably feel you out to do.
Yeah. And then they'll probably try to find a place for me.
That's what I'm thinking, Yeah, because a person with a bit of a memory that's lived long enough could be a dangerous person as they pass on knowledge of what they've seen in their own lifetime.
Yeah, well, I'll keep you posted on that, Alan.
That's a good
I will tell you that one of the things that we're doing is we're asking friends to call the hospital and just check in and say, how's my old pal Martha?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to let them know that she has a lot of friends. Because it's my view of this, of the cases that I've seen in the past, was they really jump on the isolated person.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if you're not isolated, they will try to isolate you. So
easy prey. You see, you don't want to stand up.
If your listeners would like to, I'll give you the telephone number for the hospital, and you might give them a call and ask about Martha. Once a week or something like that. I'm not trying to flood them with calls, but to let them know that there are lots of callers. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, do that. What's the address?
Okay. Martha Martha is in St. John's Hospital in Springfield, Missouri. And the main phone number there is 417-820-2000. Now, when you get there, well, you can ask about Martha Chancellor. That's Chancellor. And her, I need to give you her location because it's one of the things, this is a huge complex of a hospital. And I think I have it right here if I can get it out from under the cap. Yeah. You can tell them that Martha is in the cardiac ICU 4E, bed 25. And they won't let you, they're not going to let you talk to her. They won't even let me talk to her. But you can always ask to talk to her.
Yeah.
But you can talk to the charge nurse and ask her how Martha's doing.
Yeah.
And I think if we can let them know that Martha is not isolated, then they might think a couple of times before getting rough with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Well, we'll keep the people posted on this.
Okay.
And see what turns out. Yeah.
Okay. I'll stay in touch, Alan.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So that is where it rests at the moment. I don't think people really know what the elderly feel when the authorities start coming in. The authorities have always gone for the very young, easy targets, and the elderly. And because you're elderly doesn't mean you're stupid or senile. That's a common misconception which has been promulgated again by mass media to dehumanize, because you always dehumanize your target and get the public to believe you. The elderly are well aware that they are targets, and that when one or the other of a couple go into a hospital, they're not just going in to get treated, they're now under a system, a form of authority that began as a service, which now can dictate their lives. They can also decide where to put a person from the hospital to an elderly home for their own good, of course, you understand, according to themselves. And we all know, once they go into these long-term facilities, these exit homes, as I call them, they go downhill pretty fast. Miss Effie, that I've talked to before too, many times in fact, scalded herself a few months ago with a pot of boiling water, and she was so lucky to have a nephew who took her to a clinic every day and back again to have the dressings changed. Otherwise, as Effie was well aware, she knows the routine, she knows how they get you in, they know how they classify you, and before you know it, you've been in old folks' home, an exit home, being drugged into oblivion as you passed away your last days or weeks. This is a sad state that this great civilization, as they call it, has brought us to on purpose, where everyone is divided, no one takes care, or very few take care of their own anymore, and it's getting to the stage where the authorities won't let you take care of your own anymore. That's what ultimate authority always pushes towards. It's also a sad fact there are up and coming younger people today who, once they get into their 40s or 50s, start planning to get themselves taken care of, like nursed in old age homes. They plan ahead for this as though it's the normal thing. well, good luck to them if that's what they really want. I think personally the old way was much better, where your own people took care of their own. It isn't just someone taking a person away from a couple, taking one of the partners away. It's the whole right of the couple to be together that's been violated here. That's part of it. Emotions do count. Rights do count. Our humanity does count. Not the system's rights and its greed and its agenda and its dollar signs as they grab people's pensions and destroy lives. Drug victims into oblivion until they're drooling quietly in a corner until they eventually die. This is inhumane. As I say, I get lots of these kind of calls, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, but I don't just sit here and dream up talks. The talks are always spontaneous because I don't have time to plan anything. From Hamish and myself, it's good night and may your God or your gods, and let's hope some humanity and humanitarian feelings go with you.